and a very happy New Year to everybody, and a safe upcoming New Year as well. And as you know, this is the first time we're going to have this event virtually, and to be safe and for the benefit of everyone, we thought this would be the best approach to do so, especially, the key factor is to be able to have that communication piece open and for discussion, which we would anyways under this environment. So with that, we'd like to just cover from the program side of things, just to give our UTC community directors with an update of the UTC program from our office point of view in terms of, the normal operations, the outreach activities, and of course, not so important topics like new competitions upcoming and so on and so forth. But before we get into that, I would like to welcome and request our leader from the UTC program, Dr. Firaz Ibrahim. Now, most of you have probably met Firaz virtually, and I was hoping that this year we would have that opportunity to do this face-to-face. Unfortunately, that's not the case. However, nevertheless, we have Firaz on board with the UTC program. We are very fortunate to have Firaz. Dr. Ibrahim came from Federal Highways, where he was a key lead manager, if you will, for stewardship and oversight at the administration, leading charge for the delivery of federal financial assistance to the order of $44 billion per year within the agency. So we are very fortunate to have him with us. In addition to the UTC program, Dr. Ibrahim is also key lead in the coordination of the department's research activities across all the other modes. So with that, I would like to request Firaz to say a few remarks to our directors community, and welcome, Dr. Ibrahim.
Thank you, Caesar, for the introduction and for the kind remarks. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. And welcome to the CUTC Directors Meeting. Thank you for gathering here today, virtually, and some of you in person. It's really great to speak with you again. This is the second time, and to reconnect with you, albeit virtually, unfortunately. Like one of the UTC program staff, which I haven't met, by the way, in person still, in my new position. But I remember one of the grant manager, when I met her, she said, now I can see you 3 dimensions. So hopefully we all get to see each other in 3 dimensions, shake hands, and get to know each other more. I recognize that things have been anything but normal. I know some of the directors are having COVID, some of our staff are, so all be safe, and I hope you all, stay safe and be well as your families. So I want to commend all of you for your leadership during these hard times, and hopefully we'll put the pandemic behind us, becomes an endemic. You've remained steadfast and agile, as an example. Here we, on a short notice, we went from in-person to virtual, but nonetheless, you continue to provide quality research programming and workforce development. I gave the stories of your success right away from the UTC program, and we share with leadership. So we really appreciate all the great work that you continue to do, regardless of the circumstances. Just yesterday, I was really happy and pleased to be part of the award ceremony, sitting and listening on the CUTC Students of the Year awards, students that you guided through your programs. These students will be one day become the transportation leaders of the future. And that's only because of your stewardship and continued commitment. But I've also seen the professional award that some of you have gotten from the UTCs, but also that were connected with UTCs, but have retired. And I was really impressed with the quality of the work and accomplishments that you all have done. So thank you for that. From my end, I want to thank Dr. Hampshire, Caesar Singh, Denise Dunn, Amy Stearns, Robin Klein, Don Tucker Thomas, but also everyone in our UTC program, including all of you, for your hard work and dedication this year. So as we start this new year in 22, we have a lot of really exciting things that we're about to start looming on the horizon. Of course, we're waiting on appropriation for many of the programs, not all of them, from Congress. When we met last summer, I think we talked briefly about what is today known as the bill. It had changed name as it moved from the Senate to the Hill and as the president signed it, but we refer to the bipartisan infrastructure law as the bill right now. This is a huge game changer for our transportation network. The new law, or the bill, includes the largest ever federal investment in public transit, which will connect more people more reliably and affordably to jobs, healthcare, and loved ones. The bill also includes the largest investment in passenger rail since the creation of Amtrak, providing a fast, low carbon option for travelers for everyone, and a critical connection for many communities and people who don't have nearby airports or cannot drive. The bill also provides dedicated investment to modernize our aging roads and bridges, as well as substantial investment in clean drinking water and wastewater infrastructure. The bill also provides investment in clean energy transmission and EV infrastructure, including funding to bring EV chargers to rural areas and underserved communities in cities, and reduce transit vehicles or replace, transit vehicles with zero emission vehicles. The bill provides a lot of things, so I don't want to go through a lot of the list, but I'm going to mention two and then move on to the research aspect of the bill. The bill provides provisions to tackle the climate crisis while making the largest long-term investment in our infrastructure and competitiveness in nearly a century. We're taking key steps towards building an economy and country that is more sustainable and resilient, and we need your help to do that, and I'm sure the state DOTs need your help as well to do that. So moving on to the other side of the bill, so not only the bill invests in our future, but it also ushers in new opportunities for truly transformative research. You're going to see increased amount of fundings in the research programs that you're used to, but also you're going to see new research opportunities, brand new programs like ARPA-I, the Advanced Research Project Program Agency. You're going to see the opportunity for open research for unsolicited proposals, and many, many more. Last time we talked about the administration priorities, such as safety, climate change, equity, and infrastructure. So to guide us all on the deployment side, on the construction side, but also on the research side, to advance all of these programs, all these priorities, the Secretary just released our new innovation principles. Last week, they were posted on our website under innovation. I advise you to go take a look at them just to see, how we articulate innovation, how we would like to pursue innovation to help us advance the priority of the administration. We're excited about the bill opportunities to continue to support the UTC program. The UTC program has been very successful in the past, and Congress realized that, and we realize that. In fact, it's one of my favorite programs at DOT. So thank you for keeping the program successful. But we need your help. We need your help continue success, but also we need your help to try to, I know you're all creative and innovative, but we really need to work even harder and be more creative and innovative, because as you know, on the global scene, we really need to help America win the 21st century. So I looked at the last congressional report on the UTC program with thousands of projects. We're about 30% focused on transformative research. So perhaps that's something we want to increase going forward, so we can focus on helping America in the 21st century. My office right now is developing the new U.S. DOT Research Development and Technology Transfer Strategic Plan for fiscal years 22 to 26. This plan will guide federal transportation RD&T activities, including all DOT motor research programs and specific research, innovation, technology transfer programs. The purpose of the plan is to set the strategic research vision and goals for the future of the nation's transportation system. Also, the plan will define the role of the US DOT's RD&T program, leading to a transformation of our nation's transportation system. I encourage all of you to spread the word, but also to help us and engage with our planning effort by submitting your ideas or input to us so we can consider them as we formulate our plan. It's a fast-moving task, so we're hoping like mid-2022 to have a plan public. But you can do this, that is, help us be engaged through one or two venues. On the Federal Register, we posted the request for information that's open through the end of January. It's, I think the number is 28,283, but if you need the link, talk to Caesar, we'll provide you with that link. But also this week, we have an open mic session on the RD&T strategic planning. So for those of you that are there, it's session 1441. Be there and speak your mind on what we need to pay attention to. I want to encourage you as well to continue meaningful engagement in the process of developing the plan project policies in the form of shared participation and decision-making that work to further these priorities, that the priorities of the administration and the priorities of Congress, but also the priorities of the UTC program. If you look at the new bill, the priorities for research that Congress gave us didn't change, but there was one more added focus area to augment the strong focus areas that we had in the past. We in the transportation community, partners, stakeholders, especially researchers, must really take an informed, data-based, systematic, but holistic approach to what we do. So not only do I want to encourage you to continue to do the kind of innovative work that will carry out the nation's transportation network into the future, but I also want you to continue to tell us about it. And I know you've been doing great in the past, but keep up the good work. And for those of you that haven't not communicated with us, please do, because we really, you get our attention when you send us these stories. Communicate with our office and please share your success stories. In the bill as well, there's a new item on the incorporation of research results. I know in the past, DOT, my office in the UTC program, has been having a high emphasis on technology transfer. And for some of you that I attended your meetings for your UTC, I noticed that there were sessions of technology transfer. So thank you for that. But this new law, so it's no longer that we do it because we want to do it, but we really have to do it right now. So this is what I call no project left behind. So that is, at the conception of every project, we really need to think about the end user. Some of the project may take a long time to get to practice. I understand that, but we really need to think about the whole life cycle of innovation, from conception in the cloud, but down the road as where the rubber hit the road, to make sure that we have maximum return on investment in our RD&T program. And I know some of you do a great job interacting with the UTC program. I encourage you to continue that. But for those of you that can do better, please do, because these are important activities and interaction with us, with the DOT. From my perspective, I really want to strengthen the partnership between not just the UTC program and the UTCs, but also with the operating administration as well. So Caesar will be working with you over the next year to find opportunities for interaction with operating administrations. And this is really not only to avoid duplication of research, because that is not a concern of mine, but really to maximize collaboration between all aspects of the RD&T portfolio for the department. So again, I don't want to take much of your time, but I want to extend my sincere thanks for the work that you all do and continue to do. And Cesar, I will turn it back to you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Firaz. Yeah, we are on time. We are doing pretty good. So we'll continue on, and then we'll let you pose your questions and so on and so forth to either Firaz or myself after my briefing. So going forward, in the last, almost 2 years now, we've operated under this virtual environment. So as far as the normal program activities are concerned, our finding is that, we've operated normally without any major problems per se, whether it was, financial related reporting systems or progress reports or so on and so forth. Obviously, we had to curtail back on site visits, which we couldn't conduct because of the pandemic. However, we did virtual meetings. So from the connectivity wise, from the US DOT side of things, we didn't have any major issues, and we were able to communicate with all the centers, periodically, and obtain whatever communication links that we needed to maintain and go forward. So I think financially speaking, I think as far as obligations are concerned, for the current centers, I think we are all pretty good. And I think funding wise, it's you guys are fully funded by now. In terms of outreach activities, basically, this is something that, I want to kind of pursue with you folks. We are currently doing many outreach activities, to give examples of which is one of the new initiatives that we've embarked on is to conduct a forum series, right? And we picked the last one, the first topic we picked was artificial intelligence in transportation. And we've had a very good response from the centers. And we are, at the moment, we are packaging, basically the format is a video-based format. And basically each center, we've got back about more than 20 interests, but we finally came up with a set of 10 final presentations, which we are going to put it in a package in one consolidated video format. So from what we've seen so far, it's almost final right now, but that's terrific. The format is good. The contents are great. The presentation format is excellent. So these are the venues that we should be using going forward to kind of showcase, what our UTC community is doing to the stakeholders who are not only within USDOT, but external stakeholders as well. So right now with this operating environment, all we can do is, it would be a web-based, presentation series. So, which is fine. But I would like to pursue this going forward. And this is an excellent venue, I think. So we can come up with the next forum series, depending on a good topic of interest. And we will be, reaching out to you folks on that initiative as well. Yet another one venue is these UTC's webinars, which Robin is going to talk about briefly later on. Now, these webinars are excellent as well. And we are getting, what we do is we take in your inputs and we publish it in our web portal of any upcoming webinars that are scheduled to be held at your centers. So on an average, we are hitting the mark almost like 10 webinars per month. And that's pretty good. That's a pretty good hit. And there has been a lot of keen interest on that front as well. So I want to continue these sort of activities at the centers. And I'd like to solicit any additional ideas that you guys may have, and please reach out to me that how can we, whether it's for the internal stakeholders, which is the other modes in the Department of Transportation, because everyone, as Firaz indicated, that they are very impressed with our research activities at the centers. However, we can do more in terms of showcasing what we are doing at the centers. So this is something, I would like your input on, as well as what other activities can we embark on to increase these set of activities. So I think we are doing excellent on that front. Now, another item that I'd like to embark on is, if you recall, every year we submit this report to Congress document. And in the last few years, what we changed and enhanced that document with was a one-pager representative project descriptions from each of the centers. Now, this was just it was a one representative project, not more than one. I'd like to expand that to several other projects, major projects that you folks execute. And the reason being is that if you look at that format, it is structured in a way that we describe the description of the technical description of the project itself. But more importantly, we do indicate what the product, the outcomes, the impacts are of that specific projects. So it doesn't mean that the project has to be completed at the time of the submission of this, call it a fact sheet. It can be predictive that in the near future, this is what you plan to accomplish. And these are the planned impacts that this project may have on the community or the practicing community. So this is something I'd like to expand to other projects as well, and then request your centers to report back to each of the grant managers, at which point, based on a periodic, doable periodic timeline, we can consolidate these submissions and then publish it, whether it's a portal-based, web-based platform or a hard copy set of publications. So this is something I'd like to embark on. So the timing of which is still under discussion as to when should we roll this out to you. So think about this little initiative as well. Going forward, I think, what else? Oh, we also have, we have started the guest speaker series. This is someone from our side going to your center or university and conducting a presentation. So this is also an ongoing effort, which we'd like to continue. Provided we have the budget and so on and so forth to do so. Now, coming to the not so important topic right? New competition. So as you know, there's a new legislation in place called bill, and it is quite apparent that we will be embarking on a new competition very soon. Now, the program we all have started beginning work on that, starting with our visit to the stores to collect multivitamin tablets and looking up online yoga exercises for stress management, so on and so forth. So the understanding is that it's not going to be terribly different from the last FAST Act legislation, with maybe an additional focus area which is related to cybersecurity. But predominantly the format, structure, and the requirements are probably going to be the same. But obviously, we are embarking on this effort. It's going to be a major effort. And we've had a smaller version of this totally virtual-based competition just last a year and a half ago through executing the Tier 1 competition, which from our experience, it went fairly well without any major hitches anywhere. However, in this competition, one of the differences, if you will, is that we are obligated to comply with some additional regulatory requirements, such as routing some of these processes and documents through OMB, which we didn't have to do previously, but now, all these notices of federal financial assistance announcements have to go through OMB for clearance. So as you know, additional processes means additional time requirements. So hopefully we shall be able to manage that without any major problems or delays, if you will. So that's all I can talk about on the new competition. Obviously, I'm sure you folks are busy, from your side of things in the planning process and trying to form consortia teams. So I wish you well, and please do so. And we are already starting our sincere efforts in formulating, designing all our 9-yard steps of rolling out and executing a competition. So that's where we are. Now, I do not have any additional items. So either we can do a Q&A now, or after I pass the podium over to Robin, who has a couple of updates as well. So why don't we just do that? Let's wrap up the program summaries first, and then we can open up the questions and answers portion of the venue. All right, so I turn it over to Robin.
Greetings, everyone, if only virtually. I am going to go ahead and go off camera here. I've got something to share with you. See if I can make this work. There we go. I'm going to give you a brief update on where we stand with the webinars. Cesar mentioned this briefly. We started posting the UTC webpage, webinars to the UTC webpage back in November 2019, and we have found that capturing as Caesar indicated, all the webinars in one easy to find location has been extremely useful for anyone who's interested in what the UTCs are doing research-wise. And webinars have turned out to be huge.
I think we have some connectivity issues, Robin. Okay, I think Robin's having some technical difficulty. Robin was saying, you know, that we have, these are the key statistics that she has. We get a lot of good hits, and the distribution network is quite extensive. We send it out to not only the US DOT agencies, but even outside to other federal agencies as well. So, and also in social media, tweets every 1 to 2 weeks, Facebook postings, and as she indicated, we get almost more than 1,000 hits on the UTC YouTube channel. So this is excellent, statistics, and this is something that we shall continue to do so amongst other avenues. So with that, I think we can open it up to questions from the community. Robin, you're back.
I'm back. I lost connection, and I'm not sure at what point I lost connection. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer, but I apologize. I do not know what's going on with my connection. Probably the snow and ice.
Oh, is that Amy? Amy is in the room.
Yes, and for the virtual audience, good morning. If there are any questions, you can just type them in the Q&A section of the computer. I will pose the questions to members of the panel from there.
Caesar, can I take the liberty of squashing a rumor I heard earlier?
Absolutely, absolutely. Please do.
On the competition, I've heard people noting that because the government is currently under continuing budget resolution, that the competition will be delayed. Don't count on it. That's not official. It is a problem that's impacting us greatly in getting the necessary contracts in place for support services and stuff for the competition, but there is no official decision that anything's been delayed. The statute at this point still holds us to completing the competition in a year from.
Yeah, Amy, you make a very good point, and let me add to that with another qualifier. Basically, if you look at the legislation, there are several initiatives. Some can be considered as new initiatives. Others, such as the UTC program, is an existing initiative. So it is not a new initiative. So there was also confusion on some of these new initiatives. Yes, new initiatives may be authorized and not necessarily funded already, which is different from the UTC program, which is authorized and funded. So there's a slight, clear distinction here. And Amy, you're right. We are, proceeding ahead with all our regular activities towards formulating, designing, and executing the competition.
So I see a question about the structure of the next round of grants. One other thing I'd like to say first is the competition is for federal FY22, the current year funds, and all UTC grants will be competed as part of that. What that means is everybody who got funding last year from the federal FY21 funds, that's the end. That's the last funding on those grants. So plan accordingly. The structure, we were very lucky. The proposal that got passed for the infrastructure law was the one that caused significantly fewer changes in the program than the other one that would have upended it. So that will help us get the competition going sooner. It is still, it's the same structure as in the 2016 round of grants, 5 nationals, 10 regionals, up to 21 tier 1s. And there's a range of funding that can be allowed in each of those regions. There's not enough funding provided to give the top of the range for everyone. So there's a decision for DOT on how to establish those amounts. Caesar mentioned there were 6 topic areas in 2016 that UTCs could speak to. There's now a 7th on cybersecurity, reducing risks. The other thing that's significant to us in the bill is previously the law allowed a university to receive only 1 grant of each of the 3 types. Now it's 1 grant in total. And in practical fact, the department hasn't been giving, in a group of 35 grants, as far as I remember, has never given 2 grants to the same university. But now that's in the law. You can only get 1. The other thing that the law does, the annual report to Congress is now every 2 years. That's everything that I can think of that's changed.
I see another question about the timeline of the competition. To that, basically, this time around, technically speaking, we have been given a 1-year time frame from start to finish, and technically speaking, the clock started on November 15th. That is obviously under ideal executing conditions. So any obstacles that we face, we shall see how we accommodate those differences in timelines.
So Amy, and for those online, David Kack, Western Transportation Institute, you mentioned the FY21 was the last funding for the current centers. So if the continuing resolution, say Congress passes it through the fiscal year, you're saying all the existing centers would not get an additional year of funding?
That's my understanding, that if once the full year budget is passed, it allows us to use the FY22 funding for the competed centers. And that's typical whenever in the past, whenever there's been a new authorization bill, the old grants stop, new grants start. Yes.
Amy, PS3 Raj from the University of Illinois, Chicago. You mentioned that there'll be only 1 grant per university. Is that for the lead or is that for members
Good
of the
point.
consortium?
Yes, the lead. There is no limitation on how many other centers that lead can be a member of.
Thank you.
Or how many you can be a member of even without being a lead. And I wish we could give you some sense of the timing of this, but we just don't have those details worked out at this point. I love that question. We have certainly seen in the past that the longer we give folks, the better the proposals are. We're very aware of that. If you all have a number that you think would be good, a number of months maybe, that you would need to do a good job on a proposal, we'd love to hear about it. The last couple of competitions, major competitions, have been about 2.5 months. But I personally am pushing for 3 because we always have to have a negotiating point. 3 would be better. Okay. Three's great. Okay. I like it. And I think the fact that we're not telling you at this point when to expect the NOFO means it's not going to be this week. And everybody in the food chain beyond Caesar this is their first time through this. Everybody in the department. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Okay.
Sorry. Hi.
And then we also have a related to the YouTube channel question on the bottom there.
So, hello, this is Yin Hai from Patrons. I have a question about the theme areas. You mentioned we had 6, now we add cybersecurity. Is there any constraints for the type of centers like a national, regional, and the tier 1, like the designation of the number of centers for each theme area? Thank you.
We certainly did not do that in 2016.
No, I don't think we have any plans to do that.
And again, what we tend to say in the NOFO is that DOT is trying to reach a balanced portfolio. So we would, in the decision process, once we have the highly rated applications identified, having some of each would be something the department would consider, but we wouldn't map that out to start.
Hi, Asad here from University of Tennessee. I just wanted to know, like in the nationals, we have 5, right? And there are 7 thematic
Yep.
areas.
Yep.
So I guess even if it's 1 per area, there will be 2 left out, right?
Yep.
And which ones of those 2, we don't know.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
So-
if I were Congress, I would have done something different, but that's what happened in 2016. In fact, there were 2 of the 5
Right.
on the same
That's right.
subject. Well, 2 and 2.
Right.
So, and again, the decision was based on what we had received and how those were rated. Yeah, there's my anecdotal understanding is that the two additional national competition that occurred a
Right.
couple years after the original was meant to address that point. Who knows if something like that would happen again.
Thank you.
Amy, I'd like to read a couple questions that are coming in. Let's see, and this may have already been answered. There was a change to the regional center language. Can you speak to that?
I made sure not to bring my notes for the NOFO with me because I didn't want to leave them someplace. So I don't have the language with me. But if you remember in 2016, one of the regionals was to be focused on a list of topic areas related to connected vehicles and automated. There is some change to that language. It still exists. It's now a couple more things have been added into that list, and I don't have it with me, but you can Google the bill and search for regional UTC and you'll come up with it. Unless you
And of course, more specifics will be in the NOFO once it's released. Another question is, does the restriction 1 UTC per university as a lead apply to only level like tier 1, national and regional, or just 1 in any category?
now applies to the whole ball of wax. 1 grant out of the 35. It used to be 1 as a tier 1, 1 as a national, 1 as a regional. Now it's 1 in total. Yes.
Does that affect, do you think that will affect the ability to apply to multiple tiers?
likely not. What we did in 2016 was, this is America. You are free to apply for whatever you want to apply for. You just can't win more than one. Any other questions about current grants? Everybody has 2 years from last summer to at least to continue their work. The 3 regionals that were awarded later have 3 years from last summer. Yes.
Amy, yeah, this is Joe Zitzman at TTI. Got a question about the funding level. I got the sense it's going to be higher, the available funding. So that comes back to an earlier point, the number of centers to be awarded. Can you please speak to that?
Yeah, the funding is slightly higher. FY21, the authorized amount was 77.5. And in FY22, the authorized amount is 80 million. So it's spread across 35 centers. It's not a huge amount, especially given that there has been a funding reduction every year for a long time. The ranges for each type of center that the statute mentions, all of those are slightly high. Well, 2 out of the 3 are slightly higher than they were. And again, that's a decision that's being made back at DOT, how to interpret those ranges, keeping in mind what we've done so far and what there is slight growth each year. There's an additional chunk, little percentage each year for the next 5 years. So it's 80 million, then 80.5, then 81, 81.5, and 82 for the next 5 years. So it's incremental growth.
This is Sriraj again. I thought I understood you, but I'm going to belabor this issue one more time. Just bear with me. You said there's 1 grant per university as the lead, and then you said this is America, you can apply for as many as you want. So does that mean that, I mean, it's more in the parsing of that language, or there's no allowing any university to apply as a lead more than 1 application?
Yeah, there's no restriction on how you can apply. There is a restriction on DOT from awarding more than 1 per university.
Thank you so much.
So we have another question. It is, while there is a minimum increase in the authorized amount, what about the additional 90 million? Has a determination been made on how that will be distributed?
The elephant in the room is that 90 million. It is not described in statute what it's for, how it's to be used. So this is something that
it still has to be worked out. It's not finalized.
And the rumor mill is that when the Appropriations Act is passed, it will have more direction. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We'll find out. But that is something that, yeah, that's puzzlement. Award amounts will be stated in the NOFO when it's released. Our approach in 2016, and that worked very well, is even though there was a range, an allowable range, we need centers to be applying for the same grant with the same level of effort in order to compare between the applicants. So if we do what we did in 2016, there will be a fixed amount for nationals, a fixed for regionals, and a fixed for tier 1s.
David Kack again. So you talked about the timeline. The existing centers, we still have the ability under the contract to request the 1-year no cost extension. Is that correct?
It has to be justifiable.
Correct.
And since you have until at minimum September of 2023, what we can't do is allow people to stretch on the simply on the hopes that they will win more money. It has to be, as Caesar mentioned, a good, strong justification. I know at least one of the centers that I manage, COVID, their center is all about public outreach. COVID has hit them like a truck, and they, I expect, will have a very strong justification for why they need more time. But typically we need to wrap up, but obviously our incentive is to get the research completed, the reports done and shared. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's with a lot of the research projects, I mean, the ability to go out in the field and to do a lot of things has been impacted by COVID. And, you know, I understand that there needs to be that justification, but with the last couple of years, I think this is one of those times when a lot of folks might be looking at that need just because of the environment we've been in the last couple of years.
yeah, the trick for us is managing twice as many grants we're still one staff person short.
Yeah, the key thing, David, is that from the UTC program side of things, we are already short-staffed, and every one grant manager is overburdened. So, you know, we're trying to balance everything, right? And then we keep getting additional, you know, requirements to do additional competitions, as you've seen in the recent past with the tier ones, and so it just, you know, puts a tremendous added workload on us.
Okay, yeah, somebody's asking about the language in the statute that for national and tier one centers, the language says you must focus on one of the research priority areas. For the regionals, it says at least one. That was the way it was in 2016. What we did then was include that language exactly as written, but indicate for the regionals that we still wanted you to pick one as the one that would be your primary, because that's how we will divide the applications when they come in, into buckets by the primary focus area.
And for consistency's sake, we need to do that. Do you have any more questions on the chat, Denise?
No, all those questions have been answered. Well, one just came in. Will the most recently funded UTCs be recompeted at the same time?
That's coming from University of Maine, which was recompeted in 2017-18. The core 35 grants that were in the FAST Act in it originally when it was passed, it's also 35 grants in the infrastructure law. The additional 2 nationals and the additional 4 tier ones, that was a one-off as far as we can tell. There was one chunk of money provided, and those are not referenced in the infrastructure laws language. So those are not part of this coming competition. But any of those universities would be able to apply for.
Yeah, we won't have any restrictions per se, right?
Thank you, Tracy. This is Yin Hai again. I have another question, maybe not directly the UTC, but could be relevant. There's also a definition of a 10 regional center and one national center for transportation resilience and adaptation. Would those centers be, you know, competed at the same time and through your office, or is it managed by a different entity in USDOT?
Okay, so let me take that one. And technically speaking, you know, I mean, when you look at it, it looks like the nomenclature refers to regional centers and all of that. But technically speaking, it is, you know, it has nothing to do with the UTC program, right? It's a separate set of things, separate set of programs. And yeah, in terms of the funding, it's still not, it's considered as one of the new initiatives. So we don't know what the position is on the appropriation. This is just the authorization. Money has not been appropriated yet. So we shall see. What was the other question, part of the question? You said, is it?
Yes,
being
I mean, you
looking at-
answered both. Actually, I was asking if this will be competed at the same time and also through
Yeah,
this, but your answer is not. It's a new initiative, right? Maybe manage it differently. Thank you.
correct.
So another question that came in, if a university submits more than one application and two are deemed award-worthy, would USDOT decide which to select, or would the university?
That was stated in the NOFO in 2016 and will be restated in this one. The DOT will make that decision based on the overall balanced portfolio we are trying to achieve across all 35 centers.
When you say a balanced portfolio, can you define that a little further? Is it like equal across all, or just higher priority
It's
on
very dependent,
safety?
very dependent on what applications are rated highly by reviewers.
Okay.
Then within that, we like to have geographic diversity, we like to have, or geographic distribution, we like to have a variety of types of universities, public, private, large, small, that kind of thing comes into it too. But those, it's all only within the applications that are highly rated.
Thank you.
The other thing, it's not going to happen in time, but the discussion about the new departmental research strategic plan is something you'll want to pay attention to, see what the department is stressing. The NOFO will give some guidance on possible topic areas. That's mentioned in the statute that we are to do that, and we will. But the other place that you can read the pulse of the department is what is Secretary Buttigieg saying in his speeches? What is the discussion of that strategic plan? But you all have always been very good about reading the tea leaves. The example I always use is September 11th. We were not stressing transportation security in a big way before that. Happily, a bunch of our universities were already doing that work. So we do rely on the universities to help us identify what is important to the community.
Let's see, another question. How much does the perceived performance of a UTC count for its chances for a rebid in the competition?
An interesting point. It's not in the statute as being one of the selection criteria, except that the statute does want you to address your successes in the past, your ability as demonstrated by past successes. We typically have not done past performance specifically on a UTC grant because, again, apples and oranges. Some applicants have that, some don't.
Yeah, Amy, I'd like to, second that remark that, it's not part of the official criteria right now, and that's where it is.
I'd also like to add that the reviewers, so we as UTC grant managers, we're not involved in the review of the proposals. So the reviewers have to be able to sort of discern what your past performance is. They're the ones that sort of doing the ranking of the proposals. And so that's going to be very a key element for them to look for, as opposed to us checking the box that, you know, this is a previous applicant or previous UTC that's had good performance. So all that is done sort of blindly to as part of the review process.
One more question on, like, have you considered doing blind reviews at all? I mean, it's probably impossible to do it, but just considering just the content of the proposal and not who is
Yeah, that's
applying.
something we'd have to think about, but this is
No,
a small community and people are really good at reading between the lines. I'm not sure anybody would actually be blind. And the qualifications of the participating schools is a big part of the assessment. But
yeah, exactly. And it's one of those quals statements that you have to reveal yourself in that section. So it's impossible to do a blind evaluation.
in 2016, and I can say this because we stated it in a report to Congress about that competition, it was a mixture of subject matter experts from within DOT and outside of DOT. Probably can't get any more specific than that. On the number of tier 1 proposals submitted. Again, it's up to your university. Some of the universities like to put all their eggs in one basket, but that's an internal question for you. There's nothing in the NOFO or in the statute that restricts how many you can submit. Having said that, every competition so far, at least the main program-wide competitions, we have had 50% more applications than the one before. 2016, we had 212. If we have 300 applications, shoot me.
No, you got to start from me, not from you. Shoot me.
Oh, and we will likely ask for letters of intent ahead of the application, as we have done in the past. That allows us to get the right number of reviewers in place.
Yeah, that is absolutely very critical, that we will request for that.
Hi, this is Ashal Lee from the University of South Florida with NICER. And we just talked about the topic areas are kind of similar. And we also mentioned about how the past experiences viewed in the review process. I just wonder, so since the topic areas are same, would you like to see more of a new topics and like new research agenda for the existing UTCs, or you would like to see more of the continuation or expansion of what they have done, or basically build upon what they have done in this phase? So that's my question.
Yeah, that's not something I think
Well,
do until when the NOFO is still being drafted.
yeah, we cannot comment on that, and basically it's the value of your proposal that would dictate where it gets to.
And it's probably worth noting the tier 1 competition last year. For those of you who participated in that, you may have noticed that education was not as big a part of that as is typical for UTC grants. Under these grants, it is fully a part of your.
Yeah, this is the full-fledged regular UTC cycle. So it has all the 3 legs of the stool.
Hi, Amy, this question for you mostly, I think. This is Majid Setin from Old
Is the mic
Dominion.
on?
Yeah, I'm Majid Setin from Old Dominion University. So you mentioned every year you get 50% increase in the submissions. I'm wondering if you ever consider like limiting the number of submissions, total submissions per institution. NSF does it, other organizations do it. So
Yeah,
that might help with the
DOT's,
review.
I love the idea. DOT's council has in the past,
We,
because the statute doesn't limit it, we have no.
we cannot put a cap on that because the statute does not say that.
The other thing that NSF does that I wish we could do, and we did it one time, is do a staged competition where there's a miniature proposal and then certain folks highly rated at that level submit a full. We did that once when there was back in the earmarks days, there was a competition to reduce a certain set of earmarks to a smaller set. So it was a fixed number of folks. It was 20 or something centers. But that 2-level thing requires more time than we have. Having to get this done by November 15th, having a second level and finding a second round of reviewers is not something that's feasible. Whether your current grant should continue addressing, all current grants should continue to operate under the application that they submitted in 2016, 17, 19, 20. That is the expectation, that you were chosen to do that work and you continue doing that work. Now, if your theme area is fairly broad, as you have done every year so far, your work reflects your center's best judgment along with your other funding partners of what is important to do. So it's not as though you're doing 2016 work now. You're doing the 2016 umbrella that you chose, but you're doing work that you consider significant at this time.
So there's a question about additional information being requested during the 2016 competition, and would that be done again?
Let's hope.
Yeah, I saw that, and that depends. I mean, we don't normally do that until we have a need for additional information. So as a default, it's not to be requested.
There typically is language in the NOFO that allows us to go back for more
Right.
information should we need it. We've done it twice that I know of. Once was, we were one of the regional centers. There were 2 applications rated very similarly highly by reviewers, and we just needed more information to make the final decision. What happened in 2016 was an oddity, I think, asking everybody to submit more information. We have to plan so we don't have to do that. Yeah.
So Amy, I have one more question. This is Yin Hai. I heard some people talking about US DOT prefers new teams. Let's say if you have 2 award quality proposals, one from the existing UTC team and another is a new team, is there preference given this to a new team?
Let me answer this. We don't have a preference. I mean, I don't know where you heard that from, but that's not a criteria.
And if it were something the reviewers were going to be told to consider, it would have to be in the NOFO.
That's great. Thank you.
We do miss doing site visits. Wow, that's a part of the job.
Yep.
Anxious.
Yeah, that's on the site visit side of things. I was, as part, I didn't mention it earlier because, typically we used to do just once a year. And what I'd like to do going forward, when the times get back to normal or close to normal, is that I'd like to do it twice a year if we can, if the budget allows. And just with a limited number of representation from USDOT to manage that travel budget, if you will, but at least twice a year. Basically, the interaction with the team, the extended team, and site visits allows us to actually meet with your graduate research assistants. It creates that atmosphere of collaboration and work, and also to see your labs. We get that opportunity to see more of your research activities, on site. So that's predominantly the plus points of site visits.
And probably, Caesar, we haven't talked about this, but I imagine our priority when new grants are issued would be to do initial visits at each one of those as soon as possible.
Yes, yeah. Typically, like Amy was saying, we tend, when we have new grantees on board, we'd like to, in terms of the order, we'd like to visit them first and get it out of the way, and then go back to the current awardees.
Again, the NOFO is going to give you some language on what we were thinking.
Right.
And it's innovation is obviously something the department's been stressing for years. But especially if you're a national or regional and you have a 100% match requirement, you have to balance wild innovation with the kind of applied stuff that your other funding sponsors may prefer. Question about the match. Yes, the match requirement is the same as it was in the FAST Act, 100% for the nationals, 100% for the regionals, and 50% on the dollar for the tier ones. Any questions such along the lines of, does DOT prefer, is DOT looking for? We're not going to be able to answer those questions. It's whatever's in the NOFO when it's finally released is the guidance that the reviewers will be going against. And if we knew what we were looking for, we would just contract with it. We're looking for your best ideas and a good argument made to support them.
Anything else from the community? We have time if you guys have comments, suggestions. Again, I want to rehash this whole outreach activities. If you have new ideas, please let me know how we can sharpen that whole set of activities that we are doing, that we could extend to do, to reach out to other modes, to disseminate our research results, even ongoing research activities that other modes could benefit from.
Caesar, another question came in.
Okay.
You mentioned that the report to Congress will be every 2 years. Will that begin with the new bill, or is that starting now? When do you anticipate the fact sheet submission being due?
I believe as far as the 2-year cycle is concerned, it's for the new bill. But in terms of the fact sheets, that's something we'll have to decide when we would start rolling it out, whether to the current awardees or just to the new awardees. So that's something our UTC, I want to have a regroup with the UTC grant managers, but please send me your thoughts on it, whether it's feasible to do it on your current projects or do you want to wait for the next cycle? Just send me your thoughts on it. But I think it's a very valuable, little concise summary information that can be distributed to many, many types of stakeholders. So it's a very powerful, valuable information.
One of the things we've talked about internally, and you all will be relieved to hear this, is eliminating the recipient share report, the dreaded recipient share report. We used to get a lot of questions about where the match is coming from, and we haven't gotten those questions in a while. So we would prefer not to force you to give us that information if we're not using it. So if we get such a question, we may have to reach out to you and ask, but that's one thing we've been thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Asad here again. One quick question, Caesar and Amy. The AI that initiative, so to speak, I think was very innovative, very good. What do you have in mind about future areas like big data or
that's something, again, if you guys have any topics for future, focus areas, please send them to me. AI was just one we came up with, and we'd like to solicit those interests from you as well. And like I said, from what we've seen so far, the first round of submissions that we received, I mean, they look great. They're very professional. I thank all of you who submitted. And I think this will be an excellent way of showcasing some of your projects. Yeah, the limitation is that the challenge is that these tend to be fairly large in file sizes. So there's a limitation on how much we can transfer, in and out of the USDOT, but I've figured that out. So that's the only wrinkle in this whole process.
Dr. Osbey is suggesting cybersecurity as another focus, which would be an interesting preview of what people are doing in that area.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's one comment about the fact sheet. Someone's in favor of including more fact sheets in the report to Congress. They say that's a great tool to showcase projects, and we can do it on our own current projects. So
absolutely, that would be great.
And you do already have the 2-page project description form that you fill out as part of your reporting requirements. So to some degree, that information is there. Currently, we just ask you to put that on your website. We don't have you submit those to us. So it might be that we ask you to pick the ones that you think are the most significant and share those with Caesar.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Amy. Yeah, it's already, the form is there.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, a recommendation or a suggestion to create a citizen science webinar as an outcome of research projects to extend research efforts to K-9 to K-16 education. The focus of this webinar is for STEM education. Now, again, is that something that your center is already implementing, or something that you're suggesting that the UTC program office begin doing? Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Where did that come from? Genda, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we can probably follow up.
So, okay, so his response is, we collect PowerPoints for college professors on science-focused topic related to each project. Okay, and it looks like Robin is responding, is typing an answer to that, which will be shared shortly, I'm sure. Another question is, statement is, I would
That's,
love to see a week worth of CUTC webinars that allows each UTC to present on one project. It would really grow each UTC's audience and show the importance of the work done under the UTC program.
interesting. Good point.
And certainly using Robin's compendium of webinars.
Mhm. Yeah.
Heavy lift to roll those up.
Hey, this is Stan Caldwell from Carnegie Mellon. Just, we do our annual mobility summit with the UTCs each year. And I really like your idea of integrating more with the modal administrations. And so we do have an opportunity this year that maybe this could be an opportunity. We want to keep it very small in the COVID era this year, but maybe if we had Dr. Ibrahim kind of bring together and maybe even help moderate with representatives of research leaders in all the modal administrations with the UTCs, and then they can share the priorities of all the modal administrations, and then we could have the, at least in this, the mobility themed UTCs be talking about all their UTC research. This could be a direct way to integrate those in. So we're still in the planning phases of that. We just met with the mobility themed UTCs to talk about what we want to do with that. So that's just an opportunity I wanted to offer up there if you and Dr. Ibrahim are interested.
Yeah, great idea, Stan.
Yeah, and I want to just echo Caesar. That's one of the things we really want to focus on. And I definitely not only love this idea, but we're going to pursue this idea and others that I'm hearing throughout. We really want to encourage collaboration, but like Caesar said, within the walls and outside the walls. I know you've been doing a great job outside the walls, and there's some limited within the walls, but definitely I think there's a value. Our portfolio is over $1 billion, and we're going to have even more under the new bill. So it really behooves everybody to be interacting. Internally within the department, we have what we call the biennial research reviews, where we have every mode come to have a secretary and present on their portfolio and progress of the portfolio. And this year, what we've done differently is we invited other operating administrations to that portfolio. It used to be one at a time, FAA, Federal Highways. But now we opened it to all because we see the value of collaboration. Caesar and I have been talking about, how do we take that and, utilize the benefits and lessons learned from that to really bring in the UTCs. So stay tuned. I think, from Caesar and the ground manager, we'll be doing more of that. But thank you for saying that.
Sorry, this is Stan again. So right now that summit is scheduled for March 31st. So mark your calendars and we'll follow up. And to the other UTCs, thanks for all your participation in this too.
One thing we've been doing a lot more of in recent, since COVID, our OSTR's policy and outreach office has been doing things like retweeting stuff that they see on your websites. Whenever we get an announcement of something wonderful happening, we're spreading that, which is something we hadn't done before. So anytime you run across something, or we try to monitor your own feeds, but so hopefully by the time we see you all in June, the NOFO will be out. But that's beyond that, we'll see. Yeah.
What was that?
We will be in Montana.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
And your universities probably watch grants.gov, but that's where the NOFO will be released. It'll also be on the UTC website as soon as that happens.
Anything else that anyone would like to share with us?
Another question came in about sharing the information. is there a hashtag that the centers could use to help with resharing the information that we gather?
So there's another question on what about diversity? What about it? Just trying to understand the question.
If it's about the competition, diversity has been one of our criteria for decades. In this, it actually doesn't appear in the statute as a selection criteria, but in this day of equity, I find it hard to believe that the department won't reflect that in the NOFO.
Amy, in the 2016 NOFO, the way I thought I recalled it was, it's in there, but there were no points for diversity. Was that right? Or can you just explain that a little bit more?
The department doesn't like points. We don't assign a point value to each of the criteria. The application is looked at as a whole, and is, at least in 2016, it was rated as either highly recommended, recommended, or not recommended. So a 3-level scale. But yeah, some centers imply it in a lot of other things they do. And I know some centers had trouble with the proposal structure that, well, we talked about this already. We don't want to use up our page limit talking about it again. But that is, diversity is such a significant point that I think we still want to call that out in some manner, whether we call it diversity or equity or something else. And I think diversity can mean a lot of different things. It can mean a diverse consortium of universities. It probably more than anything means a positive effect of the work your center does on a diverse population.
And Amy, if you can comment on diversity's interpretation, diversity, but tie it to the bill in terms of the multimodal aspect of the program.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say that again.
Oh, yeah. So you talk about diversity could mean many things. Well, first of all, from an equity perspective, I mean, the administration is very clear. It, like Amy and Cesar said, we've always supported diversity and equity, but there's a heightened spotlight with that current administration. I mean, that's something we encourage you to highlight the equity and diversity in there. But in general, diversity as a term, I mean, it could mean many things, like Amy said, universities, but also could be the aspect of transportation. And I was asking Amy if you can comment on what's in the bill in terms of requirement for multimodal aspects of the program.
Yeah, I don't have the text with me today,
Okay.
but multimodal is in there a few times, and as such will be in the NOFO in the appropriate places. And that's, the Biden administration has issued a whole series of executive orders, and one of which is on equity. And that's one of the things we're working on now, is determining which, if those have to be stated in the NOFO, specifically referenced specifically, and how what position the department is taking on those. So some of them require that language be put in a grant agreement. So we're working on those kinds of details.
Firaz, we have a question in the Q&A part where it says in IJA, the UTCs are named as eligible recipients of funding for several new programs. Can you comment on how this will work within DOT? Will your office be involved with those funding decisions? Do you yet do you know yet how you will coordinate with ARPA-I?
Sure. Well, we're definitely going to coordinate. Part of my office is to steward and coordinate the entire RD&T portfolio to first make sure there's no duplication of research. And in the bill, there's requirements not only within the walls, but outside the walls. Now, we need to make sure that there's no duplication. But most importantly, to make sure, and I mentioned it in my speech, is we really want to maximize collaboration opportunities within the wall, outside the walls, but also between universities, governments, and private sectors as well. So, we have limited staff. Like Cesar said, even outside the UTC program, but nonetheless, we're using artificial intelligence and some programming to make sure we capture things. You'll be seeing, from the UTC's perspective, we're going to also try to do that to seize opportunities as you're planning your new projects. We really want to capture those ideas and run them in our AI for also the operating administration's research and outside, to advise you and advise them, say, hey, there's a collaboration opportunities in here. But one thing that I noticed in the bill that I was very pleased about is there's always mention of the UTCs. That's a great thing that you all have really gave the UTC and I'm talking about the UTC program from DOT, but also the universities. You all gave the UTCs very good names in terms of reputation and in terms of the value that you bring to the table. So there is mention in ARPA-I to collaboration that the director for ARPA-I, for example, can work directly with the UTCs, I think, if I recall the language directly. In terms of how, we know how we're doing things today, but I can't answer how we're going to do that because we have a lot of things to sort through right now. But hopefully the next meeting or even the meeting after that, we can share more specificity with you all. But I don't think ARPA-I is the only one that mentions the UTCs, others as well. Thank you for the question.
This is Stan Caldwell again from Carnegie Mellon and question for Dr. Ibrahim and and the UTC program folks as well. When we talk about modal administration, we've always been a little reluctant on doing work from the kind of aviation side or the water side, since we're officially funded under surface transportation bill. But now we see things with electric vertical takeoff and landing systems that are kind of mixing the world of surface and air, and so we've been very reluctant to fund some researchers who propose things that are maybe a little bit on the aviation side, but we say, well, we have to focus on surface transportation, or same thing with water as well, especially with the ports and everything that we work with. So, just is that still a true premise that we should be focused on funding surface transportation research and not delving too much into, again, either air or water, or is that no longer the case for UTCs?
Well,
okay,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the color of the money matters. So there are restrictions that Congress give us where the money comes from. So definitely there's restrictions on the money, and we consult with attorneys before we make decisions like this. But we are going towards a multimodal world, and Amy mentioned that she recommends that you look at the RD&T strategic plan, for example, that's going to talk about the future of transportation and the system of transportation. What our vision for it is, you all can help us achieve that vision. It is a multimodal world. There's not going to be silos going forward into that vision. The challenge is, what do we spend on what, and where's the money going to come from? I mean, there's always opportunity for collaboration. We had this issue before, thinking about if you're going to build a bridge between the United States and Canada, right? So who's going to fund that part of the bridge? Who's going to fund the other part of the bridge? We've done it here in Virginia, between DC and Virginia. Maryland would pay half of the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. Virginia would pay the other half, and they work collaboratively. So you can still collaborate, but you cannot spend Virginia money, for example, on the Maryland side of the bridge. I think the same concept, would apply. There are other program opportunities that are going forward multimodal, and those are questions that we're going to ask, and that money doesn't necessarily come from the surface transportation or highway trust fund. So there are other programs that could, we can spend the money on FAA side of things. And that's where, we can look for those collaboration opportunities to be able to accomplish ideas. I think, what we're looking for is innovative ideas, how we can get into our future and then figure out the details as to who the players are and then where the money would come from, which means that we have to work, harder and, do a little bit more planning up front to be able to accomplish innovative ideas.
So I'd like to add to that and give an example, Stan, that, let's look at UAVs, right? So it's technically speaking, it's in the domain of FAA, but if you're using UAVs for example, data acquisition of surface transportation infrastructure systems, sensing system, acquire data for, condition assessment and so on and so forth. And that is, I think it's totally eligible for funding because that is your applied context is surface transportation, but you're using just the platform is an aviation platform. So.
And traditionally, we've accepted the nexus points as being part, if we're air and maritime touch surface ports. University of Arkansas that does maritime work on the assumption that if that freight wasn't on a barge, it would be on a highway or a railroad, and those kinds of connecting points has traditionally been okay. We are going to try to do the administrative managers meeting again. That was very useful. Is there anything in particular that folks want to make sure we put on the agenda? If you have any ideas, let us know.
David Kack, hopefully the host of this year's summer meeting in Big Sky, Montana. Man, after 2 years of dealing with COVID, I would hope by June that we are 100% in person. I think that decision will be made relatively soon. I think certainly people are ready to get back to in-person meetings. And hey, Big Sky is a great place to be. So right now, I would hope it is that way. I think we'll make that decision soon. Obviously, we're the host on behalf of CUTC, so the leadership and the executive committee of CUTC will have some to say on that decision as well. But man, hopefully after that long, we'll be ready to meet in person.
Pat Zari, Vice President of CUTC. So we have discussed recording most of the summer meeting as well. We find in this virtual environment that this hybrid approach in some form is probably going to be lasting. So although we're planning for in-person, we also want to make sure that we accommodate people that are unwilling or unable to travel.
Yeah, David, just on the Montana front, the closest now that I can get to Montana is by watching Yellowstone series. Which I love it. Well, we are getting close to 11:30, so 5 more minutes. Any more questions? Or comments?
This is Evangelos Kaiser from Florida Atlantic University, FMRI Research Institute. I would like to thank the USDOT as a comment, during these strange years with the virtual thing, I think you are really supported. We have a lot of questions because, to be honest with you, I have never been in this situation, and many of us, and we were working with you, and you gave some ideas. We discussed with the USDOT regarding how we disseminate the results virtual. So I would like to thank you and it was very, 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 very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthews.
I think that's one reason that I have been in this job for 6 months shy of 30 years. We are not part of a gigantic procurement mill generating stuff all the same for everybody. I mean, the rules are the same, but we are able to do some one-on-one coaching. We try to help the centers do their best work and answer questions as they come. And we always get interesting questions from folks that hardly ever get the same one twice. So that's fun. Well, thank you all, and we'll see you around the halls, hopefully.
Well, any last minute comments, questions? If not, we ready to close this one out. Firaz, any closing comments that you would like to make?
Yeah, thank you, Caesar. I just want to say again, thank you all for helping us out, and I appreciate the UTC program for providing you the support. And thank you for giving us feedback as to that support that the UTC program provide. I'll call them a skeleton program, but they definitely go above and beyond. I'm really impressed with the quality of the support they not only give you, but they give the administration up to the secretary. But yeah, we need your help. I look forward. Hopefully next time we can meet in 3 dimensions, but you know, it's always great that we have this option just in case. And I think in the future also, some people might have some situation, you know, it's, you know, people should be encouraged to be in person, you know, if past COVID, but sometimes things happen. We'd rather have people be included than not included. So if that option is always available, you know, let's do that. And I think that's within the DOT, we're saying, you know, the COVID was an unfortunate thing, but we have to look at it from the lens that it changed our paradigm and how we can operate and operate efficiently and successfully. So, you know, let's figure out the lessons learned from this, how we can continue some of the stuff going forward, you know, to maximize the benefit we've learned from an unfortunate opportunity. But, you know, thanks a lot. This was great discussion today. Hopefully, depending on the time of the NOFO, if we can, you know, when the meeting happened, I don't know when the NOFO is, the UTC program would know. Ideally, the NOFO would be out, and then maybe the questions can explain the NOFO. And I don't know what we can and can't do, but that's where we can count on the 30-some experience like Amy has and others that, you know, they can help provide the answers you need so you can be more informed and better informed as you put it in the proposals. But we do, when you have the NOFO out, we do look forward to your proposals. Again, that's one of those, I call it, although I mentioned it's 30% transformatives in the past, and hopefully that'll increase going forward because there's a stress, you know, that the secretary want us to be bold in research. They want us to experiment and accept that, you know, one of the outcome might be failure. And that's one of those innovation principles that we have. And transformation is not totally different from what we do in terms of applied research today. Is just how we can do it and do a quantum leap towards, you know, the eventual outcome that's applied. But instead of doing things incrementally, can we have this quantum leap to get there faster? And as you know, things changed really quickly with the technology coming at an accelerating pace. We can't just ignore that and say, here's the problem today, and let's spend $1 million or $2 million to solve it today. But 10 years down the road, you know, like Stan said, you know, the multimodal aspect going towards the future. We don't want that asset, if we were to build it based on your research, to be obsolete in 10 years, because some of the assets could be, as you know, the service life as long as 100 years. We can't just have an obsolete asset out there. So we have to really use all of that. But I know we're in good hands with the UTC program. So thank you all for all the good work, and look forward to working with you all going forward to help us out. Thank you. Back to you, Caesar.
Thank you, Firaz. Good remarks, and thank you all for giving us this time, and hopefully we were able to answer some of your questions. And please, send me if you have thoughts, comments, suggestions, whatever. Please, reach out to me or any of your grant managers. We wish you the best for the competition, and wish us well to be able to execute it in time, optimally, and efficiently. So with that, thank you and have a great week ahead.